My name's Michael, and this is All Departments.
Here come the cherries, and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the cherries, here come the cherries, here come the cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to All Departments. Where most teams have their history, Bournemouth has its glorious present, and few could dispute that our current Titans in red and black are the greatest team ever to take the field of play at Dean Court. However, joining us now is one player from the past whose career suggests he would have seriously contended for a place in Eddie Howe's starting 11 in his heyday, and whose name remains a byword for brilliant in my house, Wade Elliott. Wade, welcome to All Departments.
Hello.
So, you came into the professional game quite late, at 21 years of age. Can you just tell us how you came to Dean Court? 'Cause you were at Bashley before that, weren't you?
I was at Bashley, and Jimmy Case was my manager there. And Jimmy obviously played at Bournemouth and knew a lot of people there. And he played, I think he played a testimonial game at Brockenhurst with some of the lads who would have been about my age, would have been about 20, 21. Jimmy played in the game and thought that I would be able to play in that company, sort of at that standard. So he had a chat with Willow, John Williams at the time, who was running the reserve team and was the assistant to Mal Machin. And I ended up coming down on trial I was on trial for a long, long time. I was at uni at the time in London, so I was sort of commuting back to playing a couple of reserve games, and then we had the Christmas holidays. We had about 6 weeks off at Christmas, so I came in every day and trained. And then I think the club eventually signed me in about February time, so it took a long time to make their mind up on me, but obviously glad they did, and sort of, and it all took off from there, really.
Yeah, you were juggling a few things at that point in your life with the degree. I think you were at Goldsmiths, weren't you? And you had to, I guess, make the decision at some point whether you were going to go with the football or, carry on with whatever career you had mapped out apart from football. But I suspect football was always the way you wanted it to go, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you ask anyone what they want to do, and they'd want to play football. So, actually, I was halfway through my second year, so I finished. I was playing part time. I was not playing part time. I was training a couple of days a week and doing uni a couple of days a week to finish that year. And I ended up getting in the first team, and it just became unsustainable. I was meant to be at Goldsmiths on Friday afternoons, and the first team would be doing shape and set plays, and there were a couple of Fridays when I wasn't there, and then coming back and playing on the Saturday, and it wasn't really fair it wasn't good preparation for the team, and it wasn't really fair on the players who were there all week. So I ended up, the uni was pretty good. I ended up sort of managing to move my timetable around a bit and finish that second year. Played a few games at the end of that season, then I actually deferred a year. I only had a 1 year contract, so I deferred uni for a year to see how it went. Ended up signing a new contract, a 3 year contract at the end of that year, and I'd say I had to decide between football and uni, but it wasn't much of a decision really. It was always going to be football. So I ended up signing a 3 year contract and finished my studies from home. Did my final year across 2 years from home, and I made sure I got my degree, because sort of with A levels and 2 years of university, it was time and effort into getting to that point. So that was important that I finished it, and I didn't want to waste the work that I'd already done. But I mean, I was always gonna take the opportunity to play football. So.
And do you remember when you made your debut? I think it was against Reading, wasn't it? You were a sub.
It was, yeah. I come on as a sub, nearly got sent off. I overran the ball. I dragged the ball in. I come on, and I remember it was the best feeling ever. To sort of, all that was going through my head was I was going to get on the pitch and I was going to be a professional footballer. And no matter sort of what transpired after that, no one would ever be able to take that away from me. And that was the initial feeling. And then about 5 minutes into the game, I dragged the ball inside the left back, and he pulled me back a little bit. So the ball overran. I dived in to try and retrieve it, and I ended up topping Peter Grant. He got stretchered off on he used to call it the Pope Mobile. It was like a buggy that come on and took him off, and this was like my first game, so I was mortified. So I knocked on the door. I knocked on their dressing room and went in and saw him. Spoke to him because I see if I'd done any damage or anything like that, and fortunately I did, really, because about 3 weeks later Granty ended up becoming the first team coach. So it's a good job I ended up leaving on good terms with him, otherwise it could have been a bit awkward.
That's it. The first goal was against Wycombe at Dean Court. I think it was in March 2000. Do you remember much about that one?
I do, yeah. It was, I mean, I'm lucky, really. It was my full debut, so to score on my debut was still one of my... I'm lucky I've had a long career. I've had about 700 odd games, but that would still be one of my... If I was thinking personally, not collectively, that would be one of my highlights, one of my best memories. It was a great feeling. I just remember, I don't remember how it came out. I think Big Fletch might have had a shot, and the goalkeeper palmed it, and it was the middle of the goal, and me and Hates were both running for it. And I remember I pretty much barged Hates out of the way. I almost shoulder charged him and tapped it in. I remember running off and celebrating and looking at Hates, just looking at me. I mean, Hates was a great lad, and so I think he understood in my debut and had the chance to score. So that was a brilliant feeling, and we won the game. And I managed to. I think I scored against Oldham and Wigan in the last couple of home games of that season, and that was a great start for me, really, to sort of to start the season in non-league and at university, and then I've sort of been on trial for 2 months, and then to make my debut in February and finish the season by playing. I think I played maybe 7 or 8 games and scored a few goals. It couldn't have been. It was a bit of a dream come true, and set me up for the summer, really. I ended up sort of going away into the summer really positive and elated, and worked hard and came back, and we had another great season the year after that.
Yeah, that was the season when you really broke into the team and you were playing pretty much every game. And I think that was also when Sean O'Driscoll took over from Mel Machin. I wanted to ask you about Mel Machin, because he was obviously the first manager you had. What was he like to work under?
I didn't really, to be honest. But at the time, Sean was doing a lot of the stuff anyway. Sean would have taken, from when I signed in February to May, Sean was pretty much running the show back then. In terms, I think that was always the plan, the progression. Obviously, with hindsight, I think that was the plan, that Sean was going to take over. So Sean used to take the training, and I think Sean was sort of making decisions on players and who was going to be there next season, who wasn't, and by then Mal was starting to take a bit of a back seat. But I mean, technically, Mal was the one who gave him the opportunity in pro football, so I'll always be grateful to him for that. But really, I think it was Sean by then who was who was manager in all but name officially, and I think there's a lot of us who sort of quite a young team who sort of forged our way through under Sean, and be grateful to him for the opportunities he gave to us as well.
Yeah, because Sean O'Driscoll, amongst Bournemouth fans, he's popular. He played for us for a long time, and he was at the club for years. Obviously, he was manager, and we had success under him as manager when you were there. But he always had a reputation as a very doer, humourless man. Was he like that in real life?
No, not. Sean's quite I guess he's a quiet personality, but I think when you get to people who, I'm not saying I know Sean well. He was my manager, but I think you get an insight to people's personalities, and Sean's an intelligent guy with a good sense of humour, a really keen sense of humour when you get to know him, and I don't know how the fans hold him in esteem there, but he I don't know if he was the record appearance holder, wasn't he? I don't know if Fletcher's maybe taken that off him.
Yeah, he has, yeah.
He gave the club unbelievable service across all manner of roles. And there's probably an argument to be made that he's left a bit of a legacy that's ongoing now, and not to detract from anything that Eddie's done or sort of any of his achievements, but a lot of the people who are at the club, would have learnt a lot and would have taken a lot of experiences from Sean. People like Eddie, Jason, Fletch, Hughesy, Big Fletch and Little Fletch. So I don't know. I think when people sort of look at it in hindsight, I think maybe Sean will be cast in a slightly better light than if he's not already, for whatever reason.
No, he is still looked upon favourably by the fans. I certainly look at him that way. I think it was more to do with the way he came across in the interviews. But like you said, you can't tell what somebody's like from how they interview, because first of all, they're usually quite guarded, and some of them are.
I don't think that's Sean's favourite side of the job anyway. I think he just wants to get off coaching than the football.
And that first season when you played under Sean O'Driscoll, it was your first full season at the club. That was when Jermaine Defoe came in on loan. I think it was around October time. When he first arrived and in training, did he look special straight away?
Well, he only arrived the day before. He arrived the day before a game. We were training at West Brom. We were playing Stoke away. And Jermaine turned up at training, and he was tiny. And the lads sort of looked at him and thought, "What's going on here?" Like, we just thought he had no chance. He was so small. And then he got thrown straight in against Stoke, who were a big physical team. And he was brilliant. He scored a header, I think. If I remember it rightly, he scored a header. And he was sensational, and he really just carried that on from the whole time he was there. He was brilliant. He was an unbelievable finisher in training. Any angle, he'd get shots away. And I think, and he loved it here as well. He got on great with the lads. He joined in everything. I remember we went on our Christmas party, and for some reason we dressed in drag. We thought it'd be a good idea to dress in drag, and Jermaine was right up for that as well. He really, really enjoyed his time here, and he was fantastic for us.
We went on a really good run after he arrived, and we pushed up for the playoffs. And I remember the end of that season. You scored in a few of the games at the end of the season. Obviously, the one that sticks out is the one at Reading, when you got a brace in that, and we were 3-1 up, I think, at half-time. And then it obviously went on, and there was disappointment. But do you remember going into the dressing room at half-time and the mood amongst the players?
I don't really. I don't, to be honest. I remember the game. I remember the warm-up, and we took really good numbers there. I just remember the atmosphere was brilliant, and Reading were already in the playoffs, and we needed to win to get in them, and we would have played them. I think we would have played them in the playoffs if we'd have won, and we were convinced they didn't want to play us. I don't remember the mood in the dressing room. I don't think it was. I couldn't tell you if it was. What reason we ended up losing the lead. I remember Kasky scored. I remember the equaliser was Kasky scored a free kick, and it was something that we'd worked on in the week, which was a real choker, to be honest. We worked on Jason Tindall starting in the defence, and as Kasky come up to it, he would move back so that he covered the post, and he got his timing all wrong. And I think him and Gav Stewart fell into each other. And Kasky put it exactly where we expected him to put it, and he scored, and that made it 3-3. And then I think Percy had a really good, not a really good chance, but I think Percy might have hit the bar or something just after. I just remember we were really, really disappointed because we were convinced, because with 10 games to go, we were out of it. I think we had a meeting, and I think Sean said, "Look, to have any chance of doing this, you'll need to win all 10 games." And I'm sure we won 9 of the last 10 going into that Reading game. And we were on such a good run of form. We were convinced that if we'd got in the playoffs, we would have got up. But it wasn't. So there, the fine margins in football, and it wasn't quite to be. We had that a couple of times over the course of the years there.
You mentioned Jason Tindall there. Him and Eddie Howe have gone on to work wonders at Dean Court in the last few years. My understanding is that they were quite different personalities as players. What were they like to play with?
Well, Eddie was always. When I signed, Eddie was a young captain, a really good pro. He's sort of a good sense of humour, and he liked being amongst the boys, but he was always the responsible one. And I know he said that he sort of fell into management, and he didn't really see him going down that route, which surprises me a little bit, really, because he sort of had that demeanour and that approach and that thoroughness to preparation that you would think would lend him well to management, which has obviously proved to be the case. And Jason was typical East Londoner, really. He was sort of he was like the loud one in the dressing room. But obviously they've ended up becoming a really good team, and they're obviously a foil that work well and bounce well off each other. Obviously I had them as my management at Burnley, and I think deep down their heart was always back in Bournemouth, and I think coming back, obviously the way that things have gone from since they've returned, that obviously has proved to be the case and the right decision.
Yeah, it couldn't have gone much better, really. You mentioned when he came up to Burnley, was it a bit strange for you, those two arriving? Because obviously they're ex-teammates, and then suddenly they're coming in and they're kind of like your boss, aren't they?
It was a little bit. It was tough. It was tougher than I thought it was going to be. I didn't really anticipate it being a problem, but I mean, it as it transpired, it was. I spoke to Eddie before he took the job, and he was sounding me out about the club, and he had 1 or 2 options, and I was selling the club to him because I thought we'd just come down from the Premier League, and we had a good squad, and I thought we were 1-2 players away from getting back up, and I said to Eddie that I think this is a great job for you, and you've got a great chance. And Eddie's his own man; he'd make his own decisions, but he took it, and I don't think he enjoyed being up north. And if I felt a bit, in a silly sort of way, a bit responsible for him being up there, but it was tough because I've been playing centre midfield for 3 or 4 years, and we'd had a lot of success with me in there. And Eddie came in, and one of the first meetings we had was he said to me, "Well, you're a right winger. I don't see you as a centre midfielder. And it was difficult because normally you get a new manager and you have a clean slate and there's no preconceptions. And it was almost the opposite with that. And I tried to argue the case and say, well, look, Eddie, I'm not the same player that I was 10 years ago when you knew me. Just like you're not the same. If I assumed you were the same person then I'd struggle to visualise you as my manager. But I assume that in the last sort of 8 or 9 years, you've grown and evolved and adapted, and you're a different person, and you need to look at me in the same way. And it was difficult. It was harder than I thought, trying to get over those sort of out of those parameters where he saw me in a specific way. It wasn't so much. I had no problem with Eddie being my manager or the transition of going from a player to a manager, because he was someone that I respected, and as a young player who joined Bournemouth, he was someone who was a couple of years older than me. I don't even know if Eddie was older than me, but he had a couple of years more experience than me, and he was the captain of the football club. So in that respect, he was always someone that I looked up to, and you looked at what he was doing and you'd follow that path. So I had no problems from that point of view. It was just, I just really struggled to get over those preconceptions he had of me as a player from sort of a long time ago. I think he was expecting me to do the same things I was doing when I was at Bournemouth, and by then I was a much different player. And if I'd have been, I ended up leaving because I was finding it really hard to change Eddie's opinion, and I was 30 or 31 years old, and if I was sort of 23 or 24, I would have probably thought, well, I can take 6 months here to change his opinion and let him get to know me, again. But I mean, I was 31 years old and I had the opportunity to go to Birmingham and play in the Europa League, and I didn't want to waste 6 months trying to change a manager's opinion of me. So unfortunately I ended up moving. But I mean, I think for all our teething problems, I've seen Eddie once or twice, and we left on decent terms, and we've been on decent terms ever since. And as an ex-player, I'm as happy as anyone to see the success that they've had over the past. I'm staggered by the success the club has had. Being honest, for years, it's an incredible story. But I was, as an ex-player, I was pleased as anyone, and we were out, as Bristol City were out in Vegas celebrating at the same time as the Bournemouth lads, and it was great speaking to them and just getting first-hand accounts of what the reaction's been like and what the feeling around the club's been like. And I mean, by all accounts, the place has been transformed, and it's brilliant, really. And it'll be fantastic to see how they do next season and watch the games and follow it going on from there.
Yeah, it's all a bit surreal at the moment, but we're looking forward to it, to say the least. You mentioned transformation, sort of going back to your playing career with us. The next season, after we missed out on the playoffs in that game against Reading, we were unfortunately relegated. And at the start of the season, we were playing our home games at Dorchester. I remember schlepping down to those and getting stuck in a field, which was meant to be a car park, for about an hour after the game. That must have been a strange experience, because it was like every game was an away game. Did the players like playing at Dorchester?
I mean, you didn't want to be disrespectful to Dorchester. It's a really nice setup, and we were really well looked after there. The only thing we struggled with, I think we struggled with, is we went from a really big pitch at Bournemouth, which sort of suited the way we were quite a young athletic team. We went from a really big pitch to a really tight pitch at Dorchester, and we struggled to cope with that a little bit. I mean, I don't know if there's probably, I think if you get relegated, there's more than one factor that goes into it. I don't know if us playing at Dorchester was the main thing. If I'm honest, I think the injuries were I think we didn't have very many experienced players to start with. We lost Fletch and we lost Youngie, and we ended up having a really, really young side. And we lost Jermaine, so we were struggling to score. I think the first half of the season we were actually playing some really good football, but we couldn't score goals. That's how it felt anyway. And we were having games where we dominate possession, but we'd end up losing, and then you find yourself in a bit of a dogfight, and you're probably looking around to your experienced players then to settle you down and tell you that it's going to be all right, and the ones who've been through it before. And unfortunately, ours were injured and out of the team. So I think I think any relegation is a culmination of things. And we had a lot of talent in the side, and it was really disappointing to. I mean, I remember you were talking about. Do I remember dressing rooms afterwards? I remember the one at Wrexham when we went down, and that was maybe my worst season in football. That was a horrible feeling. That summer was pretty much a write-off, and that really burnt and stayed with you as a player for a long time, which is probably why it made the season after so sweet coming straight back up. I mean, I think by rights we were only sort of correcting what went wrong the season before, but I mean it's still a great feeling to bounce straight back. And
we were obviously promoted the following year through the playoffs, and this was, I suppose, your first brush with real glory. You've had a few since then, and I watched the YouTube clip last night of the goals, just to remind myself, so I know I'll be talking to you. And I've seen Fletch talking about this before. When he scores that first goal, and he's obviously, and he's admitted this himself, like wound up like a coiled spring, and he lets it all out after he scored the goal, and you're there, and he puts his hands on either side of your head, gives it a bit of a shake, and then I think he must have like dug his fingernails into you, because he said this, and I noticed you wiping it. He cut your neck, didn't he?
To be honest, my ear was... I'd split my ear. I'd gone up for a header. Early on, which was a stupid thing for me to be doing anyway, but I ended up getting elbowed in my ear, and I had to have a stitch. It wouldn't stop bleeding, so I had to have it stitched at half time. So I just remember being preoccupied with that pretty much, wiping that away all the time. But it's just... couldn't have been anyone other than him to score the first goal. Really, he's been living off that and his hat trick for the past 20 years.
And you played well in that game. They showed on the YouTube clip you running the length of the field, taking on a couple of players, curling the shot, and the Lincoln keeper just keeping it out. And you also crossed the ball for Stephen Purchase to score his goal, which is a passing move, which is still remembered as one of the best goals that Bournemouth has scored. I think, along with the occasion, it was such an important match as well. Can you remember what you did yourself and the players did afterwards? Did you all go out, or did you go your separate ways? What was it like kind of in the hours after the game?
No, I do remember. We got we had nothing, there was nothing planned. I don't think we wanted to tempt fate, and we weren't really, we ended up having, it was one of the best nights out I've ever had. It was just such a good feeling. We ended up driving on the bus out of Cardiff, and it was the whole team was together. And we had no drink, we had nothing planned, and we ended up just clearing out an off license. We ended up finding an off license in the middle of nowhere, and we cleaned the whole place out pretty much. And we turned the bus back from Cardiff to Bournemouth must have been a couple of hours, and we turned it into a party bus. And there was music on, and the lads were up sort of dancing about and drinking, and it was brilliant. We ended up getting the bus to drop us straight into town, and I think everybody ended up, it was Elements then, God knows what it's called now. It was we had the team bus drive us straight up there. Everyone sort of bowled off and walked in, and everyone was in. I remember Sean and Granty were at the were at the bar as well, and all the staff, and we ended up just having it was a spontaneous one, but it ended up being just a really, really good night. And somehow I ended up with the trophy back at my house. So for about a week, probably not as long as a week, but for a while I had the trophy on top of my telly. And I think the people at the club were panicking, wondering where it had gone. But I was just inviting people round to come and watch the telly so they could see the trophy and have a picture with it. And then after about, it was probably 3 or 4 days, after 3 or 4 days I thought I probably can't get away with this much longer, so ended up taking it back into the club.
And then the following season, we did quite well. We finished ninth that year. I think we dropped off a bit at the end when we might have been pushing for the playoffs. I remember going to watch us play at Loftus Road at QPR, and we won 1-0, and you scored. And that was the first time that I heard the Wade Elliott song being sung. Like the adult version, as you know, is We've Got Wade Elliott.
Yeah.
He's bleeping brilliant. But then that led to the CD coming out by the Bewley Brothers, which got at the time quite a bit of publicity. What was all that like?
It was quite flattering. It was nice because it's not the. I don't think my name's the easiest to get into a chant, so I mean I appreciated that the fans took so much effort to make one up. But no, that was good. I remember it got put on the team bus one time, and it lasted about 40 seconds before Drisk turned it off. He didn't seem to be a big fan, but no, it was good. It was a bit surreal. I think I've still got a copy of the CD upstairs. I've got all my I've sort of got all my Bournemouth stuff packed away and sort of in a box upstairs, and I think there's a CD in there. So I mean that's a nice keepsake to have. I know there's probably not many players who have had a record made after them. So
no, it's unusual to have your terrace chant then go kind of to vinyl, as it were.
Yeah. So no, that was flattering, and I mean that gets dug out every Christmas or so and whacked on again.
That was the same season that James Hayter scored that hat trick. It was in February that season. We won 6-0 against Wrexham. He came on in about the 84th, the 85th minute, and by about the 88th minute he'd scored 3 goals. You were on the pitch. I watched that one again last night as well. And did you think that he might have broken some kind of record, or were you just kind of concentrating on the game?
Yeah, I don't think we really realised till afterwards, to be honest. But I mean, Hayes was a really, really underrated player, and he was a fantastic finisher. And he was probably the only one in the team who would have been able to do that. To be honest, he sort of getting free chances, and there's a good chance he was going to take them. The thing that I remember from it was I got dropped the next game. I was playing right wing back and I got dropped, and Hayes started the next game. And I remember going to see Sean, and I was fuming, and I was saying, "Well, we've just won. How can I be dropped when we've just won a game 6-0?" And Sean was saying, "Well, hey, I've got to play Hayes. He's come on and he's got this hat trick, and I don't really care. He wouldn't have got the hat trick if it wasn't for us." But I just remember it being funny, looking back at it now, having the argument with Sean about getting dropped. But it was, I think we were all pleased with Hayes. He was such a good lad, and he was probably, he got asked to do a job for us everywhere. He played right wing back, left wing back, in the hole, up front, and wherever he played, he played really well. And he just got on with it, and he never ever moaned, and he was probably the most popular member of the squad, and probably the most unassuming as well. So I mean, that was a I'm sure that was a brilliant moment for him, and I think he probably deserved his, a bit of limelight for all the young sung work that he did.
Absolutely, and he'll probably never be beaten. I'll be surprised anyway. And the following season, which was your last season with us, again, we had a brush with the playoffs. I remember going to the final game of the season against Hartlepool, and it was kind of like a playoff before the playoff games, because we were both. A draw was good enough for them, I think, and we needed to win. And obviously, if they'd have won, they'd have gone into the playoffs. So basically, we needed to win to get into the playoffs, and we'd have leapfrogged them. And I think we were 2-1 up, and we drew 2-2. The thing that really sticks out for me about that game is that I remember people leaving. Like the fans sometimes leave before the end to beat the traffic and all that sort of thing. And I couldn't believe it, because there was 5 minutes left, and the entire season was on the line. If we'd have got a goal, then we'd have been in the playoffs. And people were getting up to beat the traffic. I was really surprised. And that was your last game for us, I think. Did you know it was going to be your last game? I mean, obviously, if we hadn't got in the playoffs.
I didn't know. But obviously, I was at the end of my contract, and I knew that there was interest from Championship clubs. But I mean, I still thought that we had a good chance of getting there ourselves then. So I didn't know if it was going to be my last game or not. I just remember being similar to yourself, really. I remember it being 2-2 and expecting a really big push for us to get the winner, and for some reason it never really came. Like you say, you would expect the last 5 or 10 minutes it to be sort of really raucous in the ground and all guns blazing, and it never really seemed to happen. And for it to peter out in the manner that it did was just really disappointing. And yeah, that was a funny season, because we'd been so strong at home all year, and we'd been a little bit up and down away from home. And in the last 6 or 7 games, we sort of flipped it, and we started winning away from home, but couldn't get a result at Dean Court. And I mean, that was probably a bit of a disappointing note to go out on. Really, it would have been great to have finally cracked the playoffs and go at that with Bournemouth, but I mean, it wasn't to be that year, unfortunately.
And then you left to go to Burnley. I remember being gutted when you left. There was a photo of you and Gareth O'Connor with your Burnley shirts on the day you were transferred, smile at the camera, and I was like, oh no, I can't believe he's gone. Do you remember how the move came about?
Well, it's funny really how sort of fate plays a bit of a part. And I remember we were meant to play. We were Liverpool or Burnley in the FA Cup.
That's right.
And I can't remember if they had a replay or it got postponed, or anyway, it got drawn before they had their tie. And I remember going around to Broadie's house, Carl Broadhurst, to watch the game, and we all thought we were going to Anfield, and then obviously we ended up playing Burnley, and like I said, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in hindsight. We lost the game, but we actually played really, really well. And I think the gaffer, Steve Cottrell, I think he was still based in Bournemouth, so I think he was aware of me and Gaz and Spice anyway, but probably seeing us firsthand and playing against a championship team probably helped cement that in his mind, and really that was the reason I ended up signing for Burnley, because he, the gaffer, then was the one who sort of showed the most interest in us. There were other options, but I don't know whether they were just options because I was on a free and sort of I'd have been a good bosom for someone, but he had us watched sort of 8 or 9 times, and he knew a lot about us, and I was convinced that if I went there I was going to get a good opportunity to play, and that's how it panned out really. And I mean, that ended up being moving up north and sort of playing up there turned out to be probably the best thing I ever did. It was good to to move away from home and sort of see how I got on in a new environment and at a new club. And I don't know how they took to sort of skinny Southern lad turned up with highlights in his hair and the rest of it, but sort of they seemed to take me on board pretty quick, and sort of it turned out to be, like I said, probably the best career move I could have made.
Yeah, you had your fair share of glory at Burnley. Obviously, there was the goal in the 2009 playoff final, and then you went on to play in the Premier League. And you've been at Bristol City recently and won the League One title this season and the Johnson & Paints Trophy. So you've had a good career, and you've got a lot of fond memories to look back on. How does your time at Dean Court rank amongst all of that?
It wasn't for my time at Bournemouth and none of the other stuff that followed. So I loved it there. I really loved it there. I was lucky really, because I think the fans sort of, even though I came from Bashley and I was, Bashley's not too far from Bournemouth, and even though I didn't come through the youth setup or anything like that, I felt like they sort of took me on as one of their own, and I had a really good rapport with them. I had so much support from them, and I was always really grateful for that. We had a bunch of lads who were all sort of a big crux of the squad, was all around the same age, around sort of 21, 22, and we were all trying to make our way in the game, and we were really close knit on and off the pitch. I mean, Bournemouth's a great place to live, and sort of we were young lads who all lived within about 15 minutes of each other, so we used to see a lot of each other, and everyone got on and hung out, and just nothing but good memories really. And also on top of that, it was a good place to play football as well. We played some really good stuff. It was for the type of player I was at the time. Sort of I hugged the touchline, and the lads tried to feed me the ball as much as possible, and I was just told to get at ball backs and try and get crosses to hate some big Fletch, and just a combination of everything really, sort of on and off the pitch. Everything sort of came together really well for the team and for me personally, and like I said, nothing but good memories really.
Well, you're certainly fondly remembered in these parts for your wing wizardry in those days, and I've really enjoyed talking to you about the years that you spent at Dean Court. I remember we played Birmingham last season. I think it was on your birthday, and I was hoping we were going to see you hugging the touchline or maybe in the centre of midfield, but you didn't play that day. But fingers crossed we'll draw Bristol City in the Cup this year, and we'll get to see you back at Dean Court. That would be fantastic. So thanks ever so much for coming on the show, Wade, and good luck next season.
It's my pleasure. Cheers. Bye.
It's fair to say I was a big admirer of Wade when he worked his magic on the wing at Dean Court, so it was quite a thrill for me to speak to him, and full marks to him for sparing the time. During the recent podcast moratorium, I've attempted to keep things ticking over on the website by posting a short series called Cherry Culture, which takes a brief look at some of the cherry-flavoured paraphernalia that's come to light over the years. You can find that and all previous podcast episodes at www.alldepartments.wordpress.com. If you want to get in touch, email alldepartmentspodcast@gmail.com, and you can follow on Twitter at alldepartments. There's only one way to play out on this one, so enjoy this tuneful tribute to the Wizard of the Dribble, courtesy of the Beauty Brothers. And up the cherries in all departments, and goodbye!
Pressure is hard to take, but pressure is what we're given. Oscar